Today we have the one and only Staccato XC, the one with the big comp, and it's got an Aimpoint ACRO P-2. I'm very excited about this one. Yep. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Today we have probably the nicest pistol that I have ever shot. This is the Staccato XC. XC being the one with the island barrel with the big chunk port comp at the front of it. This thing is absolutely beautiful, and it came from the absolute best gun shop in Southern Idaho, Guffey's Gun and Pawn. So I have to thank Guffey's and Cody specifically at Guffey's for that. Cody, I really do appreciate this, man. This is a pistol that I would not really be able to afford to purchase myself to bring to you guys on this channel. And so to have the opportunity to do that is pretty awesome. The Staccato XC is a dream pistol of mine. It's something that I have always wanted. And I've always wanted to just have the opportunity to just shoot it. And today I had that opportunity. I just got back from the range and I had a great time. If you guys want to see about the Staccato XC, make sure you're subscribed and let's begin. Should we do some bill drills? The Staccato XC is a 2011, and I'm actually allowed to say that because this one isn't just a double stack 1911, it's actually a Staccato. Staccato is the one that has the trademark for the name 2011. So this is where the 2011 came from. And to be quite honest, I've owned this Springfield Prodigy for a long time. You take this gun apart, they look very similar. You can see where the 2011 design was copied there. But this is the real thing, and there is a difference. This is a very expensive gun. Honestly, this pistol with this optic setup, this is the Aimpoint ACRO P-2. Again, one of the best pistol optics you can get. This setup costs more than my most expensive rifle, or at least about the same if I put the suppressor on the end. It's not a cheap pistol, but do you get what you pay for? It depends what you want. So if you want the bleeding edge of performance, but also reliability, this pistol is for you if you're a good enough shooter to get that performance out of it. Now, I'm probably not, but I'm a good enough shooter that I sure did enjoy shooting it. Now, I've said many times on the channel that the pistol that I feel the most confident with out of all the pistols that I own is my Prodigy, which is a double stack 1911. Very similar in design to a Staccato 2011. Well, this pistol just makes you feel even more that way. In fact, I have an overconfidence problem, and the only times that I missed shots today was because of overconfidence. Because I just tried to go faster than I should have. Didn't get my, dot on the target in time, and that was totally on me. This gun, if you do your part, it will make shooting well easier for you. It's a very, very good gun. So we're not going to do too much comparison between it and the Prodigy, but just for comparison. So the XC is Staccato's, it's like a blend between a race gun and a duty gun. And this gun specifically was a duty gun. Should we try a little bit farther back? It's at 40 yards right now.
not terrible.
This Staccato came from Astoria, Oregon, and this shop right here, Gun, Boot, and Gear, Andrew, the owner, aka the hometown hero, well, he's a cop, and he owns this gun shop, and he's a firefighter, and he's got great taste in pistols. This Staccato was his duty gun. He is a police officer, and apparently his department will let them carry a comped 2011 with an Aimpoint on it. That's a pretty cool police department. And honestly, probably a pretty cool police officer. He's a friend of Cody, who owns my local shop, Guffey's Gun and Pawn, and that is how it ended up in my hands out here in Idaho. The thing about this gun is that it is a duty gun. Now, duty guns are looking more and more like race guns these days, with comps and optics and magwells and all the stuff that was made popular in the competition shooting world. But what do you know? Things that make it easier to shoot quickly and accurately in competition, well, they also work for, the tactical world. I was gonna say for the defensive world, but also for the duty world. And this gun would be a great bedside gun. Now, if you're a cop and you can carry it outside the waistband in a level 2 retention holder, yeah, great gun to carry. This would be a pretty tough gun to conceal carry, in my opinion. If you've got the right holster and you can do it, more power to you, but it is a very heavy gun. This is a big gun. So it's got this island barrel comp. Now, it's a 4.2 inch barrel to the island comp. Very similar in barrel length to the Prodigy there, but then you have a comp here. So it's basically a full-size government 1911 on top, with, of course, Staccato's polymer grip module on the bottom. And that's what makes it a 2011. You have a 3-piece system with a polymer grip module. Not all of them. Some of them have aluminum. Some even have steel grip modules. Staccatos generally have polymer grip module, and then you have a steel or aluminum, in this case steel, frame, and then a slide and barrel. A 2011 is just a 1911 that is made to take these double stack 2011 magazines. But it's more than the sum of its parts. There's something about a 2011 that makes the shooting experience just easier. The very first magazine that I put through this gun, and it was before I even turned the camera on, I just wanted to see how it felt, was at 40 yards, and I was able to shoot very well, transition from target to target, and I mean, it was just easy. And that was my first time with the gun. Now, again, I do have a lot of experience with the Springfield Prodigy, not to keep going back to that, but they do feel very similar as far as the actual shooting experience goes. But the Staccato is a much tighter gun. There is no play here. Get next to the microphone and see if you can hear it. Like, just enough play to make it reliable, and a lot less play than that Prodigy has. But then again, you do pay for that. This is a $5,000 gun with, an $800 optic on it. So you're gonna pay for those tolerances, but it is a precision machined instrument. And you can tell that when you hold it, and you can absolutely tell it when you pull the trigger. But let's go up close and take a really good look at it. The Acro window takes a little bit of getting used to. It's smaller than the Holosuns that I normally run. But this pistol is absolutely amazing. I like this. So very quickly, let's get this out of the way for 1 second, just so that you can see the the really nice case that it comes with. So it comes with this range bag here. You open it up, and it carries a bunch of mags for you. And these Staccato mags are very nice. 20-round magazines, and these are 17-round flush magazines. And then behind this nice pad here is where your gun sits. It's got Velcro to hold it in place. It is just a very nice range bag. So you do get a premium package for your premium price. But what else do you get for that premium price? Well, you do get that polymer grip module, which has really, really good texture on it. It was hot out at the range today, really hot, and I was sweating, but I did not have a problem holding on to this gun very well. Now, I've compared it a little bit to my Prodigy already, but the Prodigy, I had to change out a lot of parts to make it as good as it is now. This gun, you do not. The safety from the factory feels exactly like a 1911 safety should, whether you use the left or the right side, because it is ambi. I had to change that out on my Prodigy. Like I said, the fit and finish of the gun is impeccable. Now, this gun deserves a Surefire X300, but I did not have one sitting around to throw on it. So I threw a Streamlight TLR1 HL on here just to see, how that rail worked and if it put it in the right place, which it absolutely does. But this light just looks a little bit funny on this, just beast of a gun. You want something a little bit longer, I think, just for the aesthetics, but still, I felt like it was worth throwing on there. Now, as you move up the gun, so you have the grip module, fantastic. You have these magazines, which to me, I found them to be totally reliable, but I've also not had any problem with the Springfield magazines. I hear people talk about, 2011 magazine problems all the time, but it hasn't been my experience. The trigger on this thing, very good. Although it is set up for a duty weight trigger. So my Prodigy, I know I'm keeping going back to that. My Prodigy has a 2.4 pound trigger, but it's not the trigger from the factory. I had to spend money. It's got EGW parts and an Atlas trigger, and it's tuned to 2.4 pounds. The Staccato here is not. So it is kind of a duty weight trigger, but it's a very, very good trigger. So 4.8 pounds. I'll do a couple pulls here just to make sure that we're right on. 4.6 pounds. 4.8 pounds. And that's about what I was getting off camera as well. So it doesn't have that just ridiculously light 2011 trigger. Although, if you wanted it to be, that's a very easy adjustment of the mainspring. Mainspring housing comes off, that main spring comes out, adjust the leaf spring a little bit. If you know what you're doing, you can get this trigger lighter, but just make sure that you keep it nice and safe, and it is. But even though the trigger is not as light as some 2011s, it is a perfect 1911 trigger. So little bit of take up there, smooth, standard 1911. That is the brake, reset, brake, very short travel, very short reset. And so it is made for shooting fast and for shooting accurately. And a trigger is what makes all the difference for that, at least in my experience. If you have such a crisp, short brake and a short reset as well, it makes it very easy to go fast with it, but also shooting accurately at distance, just like your two-stage trigger on your AR, like a Geisley or something, you prep that trigger to the wall, which is very defined. And when you know that your dot is on target, that little crisp break is all it takes to put the round on target. There's a lot less of a chance that you're going to pull your round off. A lot of people shoot low and left because of just body dynamics, and when you squeeze, your hand goes like this. Well, you have a lot less of a chance to do that with a 1911, 2011 trigger like this. It just makes shooting accurately and shooting fast much easier. So let's move up from there. Everything feels really good. It's nice and blended. There aren't really any sharp edges. The whole gun just exudes an aura of quality. Everything feels, it's something that you can't really show or put your finger on, but it does just feel very high quality. All the parts are, tool steel, and they're just machined perfectly, and they're fit together absolutely perfectly, which is really nice. Now it's got slide serrations on the back, which obviously not really using those because running an optic. But at this point, because I use optics on almost all of my pistols, I've gotten very used to using the forward slide serrations, of which these are also very good. They're pretty aggressive feeling, but they're also a window. That's the barrel that you see behind there, which I think is very cool. Now everything is black, black on black on black. And that's because it is coated in DLC, or diamond-like coating, or diamond-like carbon. I've heard it called both things. It's a very, very tough coating that resists wear and lasts for a very long time. And the black on black, I think it just looks absolutely amazing. So now we get to the front here and maybe the star of the show. This is the compensator, and it is a big compensator. Single port comp, and not cut into the slide and into the barrel, not threaded onto the end of a threaded barrel, but part of the barrel. When you take this apart, that compensator comes out with the barrel. It is part of the barrel. And this is a very sweet design, and this is where a lot of that cost comes from in the Staccato XC. So your front sight and your just giant port here are all machined into the barrel, and then your slide has a recess in it for that island. That's why they call it an island barrel. And it does make a big difference. This thing has very, very little recoil, as you'll notice from the shooting footage today. Now 2011s and even double stack 1911s like my Prodigy already feel like they have very little recoil compared to most pistols. But you add a big port onto the end of it, and it just makes that recoil feel almost non-existent. Now this one also comes with the toolless guide rod, which made takedown of this gun extremely easy. I did take it apart and clean it and oil it before I went out to the range, just because I wanted to make sure that it ran perfectly, and because it was a duty gun, it has absolutely been shot. This thing was not brand new, but that, you can kind of see how good that DLC coating is. It still looks like it is brand new. Now the barrel on the Staccato, extremely accurate. If you do your part, it'll do its part. Now there are shots that I missed today. That was me not doing my part. The gun is very good. I do like how they have the flat on the top of the slide. I mean, the whole thing just feels really good. And when you rack that slide, this one has a very light recoil spring in it. There were a number of recoil springs in the case. I believe the one that's in it right now is an 8-pound. Feels very similar to my Prodigy. And it just makes, I mean, you can't do that with your Glock really, or with your M&P, or with your Walther, or with whatever striker fired gun. And that's one of the nice things about 2011s as well. Just racking them and how good they feel. I mean, it just feels like glass sliding on glass. It's pretty amazing, to be honest. And the sound of that, I mean, it's just very satisfying. There's something that's hard to put into words, but holding this thing, playing with this thing, it does just all feel very high quality. Now when we get to the optic mount and the sights, the optic mount is great. It does sit a little bit high on here, but that's kind of, you know, it's hard to get an optic mounted super low on a 1911 slide. And it has my favorite kind of sighting system, which does co-witness there. Now I have this optic turned way up because it was super bright sunshine at the range today. Let's turn it down a little bit, maybe back up one so we can see the dot there. There we go. So you can co-witness these sights. It's got a blacked out rear with a fiber optic front, which again is my favorite, you know, iron sight system that you can have on a pistol. It's nice. You could really pick that front sight up in the sunlight very well, blacked out rear. But I was not using the iron sights because this Staccato is equipped with an Aimpoint ACRO P-2. Now, how do I like the ACRO? To be quite honest, I mean, it's a tank of an optic. I'm not worried about it breaking or not working. Aimpoint is one of the most trustworthy optic companies that exist. My little bit of an issue with the ACRO, though, is the window size. It does kind of feel like you're looking through a narrow tube. And at least me, I did like notice the housing on it more than I do with, say, just a regular Holosun. And I know that sounds like heresy, but I'm very used to shooting the Holosuns that I own. They have bigger windows and the housing isn't as thick, and I just don't really notice it. All I notice is my target with the dot on it. Whereas with this, I did kind of notice that housing, and I could definitely tell that the window just felt smaller and a little bit more restrictive. And in fact, the second time I went to do a bill drill today, I just tried to go too fast, and I just didn't get my dot in my window and on my target, and I just totally botched that bill drill. So this might be the nicest pistol I've ever shot. You guys know how much I love my Springfield Prodigy, which is basically the Staccato we have at home. Well, this is the real deal, and you can tell a difference, although they do shoot very similar. This comp though, oh baby. The Staccato XC is an absolute joy to shoot. Like, it really is. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know that I love 1911s, and I absolutely love 2011s or double stack 1911s. My Prodigy is my favorite pistol that I own. And this is just a much nicer version of the same thing. But this is the originator. Staccato is the company that coined the term 2011, that trademarked it, in fact. And they came up with this design of a duty gun that's also a race gun. You know what I mean? So STI is what Staccato originally was, and they made race guns. And at one point, I can't remember exactly which year it was, they just totally changed what they did. They stopped making race guns and they started making duty 2011s, double stack 1911s for duty use. And they're used by police departments all over the country now because they are totally reliable and they're the easiest pistols in the world to shoot. And that's the thing. If you're on duty, if you're using this thing seriously, you want it to be easy to shoot, both fast and accurately, and a Staccato is absolutely that. But the problem that people had with 2011s, at least when this whole thing started, is that they weren't the most accurate thing in the world. You had to tune the magazines. There were just issues people had with, I said accuracy, with reliability. Accuracy was absolutely there, but the reliability was not. Well, it absolutely is now. They have perfected this design as far as making a reliable pistol that is still very accurate and very fast. You want your pistol to make you feel confident. You want to feel like you can hit what you're aiming at if and when you need to use it. And the Staccato 2011 makes you feel confident, especially the XC with this big comp on the front. I mean, it's just a very, very easy gun to shoot well. Like, I cannot reiterate that enough. This gun makes you feel like a better shooter than you really are. If you shoot decently with a Glock or an M&P and you get a Staccato in your hands, you're probably going to shoot better than you normally do. People say that you cannot buy skill. Well, you kind of can. Now, you're going to have some skills. I am absolutely not the best pistol shooter in the world, but I do go shooting every weekend out of the year, 52 weeks a year. I shoot a lot, and I feel much more confident with something like this and even something like this than I do with something like any of those. There is a certain level of, you can buy, maybe not skill, but performance if you've already got some skill. The Staccato, there's a reason it costs as much as it does. This costs more than my most expensive AR, and it's a pistol with a really nice optic. Ooh, she fast. Pistol shooting is hard. it's a lot harder than shooting rifles in my opinion. With a rifle, you have more points of contact. You have something in your shoulder. You have your hand on the pistol grip, you have another hand out here, and you have a cheek weld. That keeps your rifle on target when you are, performing your trigger press. With a pistol, you don't. You have two hands on it, or sometimes one hand, and it is very easy to pull your shots off target with this chunk of metal just floating in front of you. If you have something like this, with a trigger like this, with a barrel like this, with the accuracy, the weight, and to be quite honest, the lack of recoil, it is a lot easier to not pull your shots off target. And so it will make you feel like a better shooter. Is it worth $5,000? It depends who you are. It depends if you have that kind of disposable income. It depends how good of a shooter you already are. I think that if you are a good enough shooter where you're going to be able to get that extra performance out of this and you can afford to spend $5,000 on a pistol, then I absolutely do think it's worth it. But you do get into a level of diminishing returns. One thing that made me really happy about shooting this gun today is that it really actually made me appreciate my Springfield Prodigy. And I know that might sound like heresy to some, because this is definitely like the Staccato we have at home, right? $5,000 setup, $2,500 setup, and mine, it's a $1,300 gun, but I've got all EGW internals, Atlas trigger, EGW safeties, 8-pound recoil spring, optic, light, everything else. And this gun feels really good. It's absolutely not as tight as the XC, as the actual Staccato, but it's definitely not bad. And I did have to replace some of those parts. The safety on it was mushy and not good. I put a different safety on it and it's great. But is this gun twice as good as this gun? $5,000 versus $2,500? I don't think so. I kind of went out there today thinking that this was going to be an absolute cheat code, and it absolutely is. Compared to something like a Glock, it is a night and day difference. But compared to, an upgraded and customized a little bit Prodigy, the difference was more marginal than I expected it to be. Now, the comp, it definitely had less recoil. I think that the grip module has better texture. We could go on and on about the things about this that are better than the Prodigy, but the shooting experience itself was very similar. Gotta thank Guffey's Gun and Pawn for this one again. Very stoked. I just thought that it was worth putting that comparison in there because I have so much experience with this Prodigy, and there's no way that you can go out there and shoot another 2011 and not compare it in your mind to the one that you have spent a few thousand rounds through and a lot of time on. And so it did make me really appreciate the $2,500 pistol that I have. At the same time, if I had the money for this, if I had the money to spend just on this and it wouldn't hurt me financially, I would do it. It is a fantastic pistol. And I think that if I had the chance to spend more and more time on this, I think that you would be able to squeeze every last drop of performance out of it as you got more and more used to the pistol. And so in that way, I do think that it is worth it. I think if I shot competitions, it would be worth it. The Staccato XC is an amazing pistol. There's a reason why they charge what they do for them. There's a lot of work that goes into making a pistol this just tight, this accurate, and this reliable, and just this easy to shoot well. And it is pretty amazing. If you haven't had a chance to shoot something like this, or just any 2011 in general, I highly recommend you go out there and figure out a way to get your hands on one. because it will change the way that you look at pistol shooting. It just makes it an easier experience. So again, I want to thank Cody at Guffey's Gun & Pawn for loaning me this. This isn't something that I would have been able to just get on my own, at least not anytime soon. And so he made that possible, and I really, really appreciate it. This is on loan. It'll be going back to the gun shop on Monday, but it sure was a great experience getting to shoot it this weekend, and I really, really appreciate that. I've only got a few rounds left. You go through ammo fast with one of these. So let's try from a little farther back again. Easy. Let me know down in the comments if you have experience with a Staccato 2011 or any of the newer, more affordable double stack 1911s on the market, and what your experience with them has been. Do you feel, as I do, that it is kind of a cheat code compared to a striker-fired gun? Because I think that it makes the shooting experience much more enjoyable and much easier. But I want to know what you guys think. And if you have any questions about this, let me know down in the comments what your questions are too, because at this point, I feel like I do know a lot about this gun. I've looked into this gun a lot before I ever had the chance to shoot it. It's something that I've always wanted to get my hands on. And so I believe that I can answer your questions if you do have them down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Make sure you subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.